The Great Pyramid of Giza holds secrets far beyond its massive stones. These ancient monuments are not just architecture, they are encrypted messages from lost civilizations. You are about to learn how to read the hidden language of history's greatest structures. We will uncover why a temple's echo mimics a sacred bird and what mysterious symbols lie buried beneath giant statues. By the end, you will see every ancient monument as a coded message waiting to be understood. What forgotten truth do you think is hidden in plain sight, just waiting for someone to finally read it? A single Mayan glyph, carved with exquisite precision, held a secret it would not surrender for over 1,000 years. This was more than just forgotten art. It was a testament to one of humanity's most profound impulses, the desperate need to preserve knowledge against the relentless decay of time. Civilizations rose and fell, but their deepest truths, they believed, could be encrypted in stone. They developed writing systems not merely as tools for accounting or royal decrees, but as sophisticated vessels for their most precious intellectual and spiritual discoveries. Egyptian hieroglyphs and Mesopotamian cuneiform evolved from simple pictographs into complex symbolic languages capable of conveying advanced mathematical principles, precise astronomical observations, and layered spiritual teachings. According to experts like Dr. Amelia Chen, monumental inscriptions often operated on multiple levels, surface narratives for the masses, and deeper, esoteric meanings reserved for initiates. This created a powerful intellectual hierarchy, ensuring that sacred knowledge was not diluted or misunderstood by the uninitiated, while also guaranteeing its survival long after the culture itself had faded from memory. The ultimate proof of this concept arrived with the Rosetta Stone. For centuries, Egyptian hieroglyphs were beautiful, meaningless scratches on temple walls. But the discovery of that one slab of rock with the same text in 3 scripts provided the key. It was the codebreaker that unlocked the entire voice of an ancient civilization, revealing their history, their beliefs, and their scientific understanding. This makes you wonder, what other Rosetta Stones are we walking past today? What messages are carved into the monuments we photograph, their significance completely overlooked simply because we have not yet learned to read them? This fundamental human drive to encode knowledge forces us to look closer at the specific, and often brilliant, techniques different cultures employed to hide their wisdom in plain sight. The sheer scale of the Great Pyramid can obscure its most astonishing feature, its impossible precision. This is not a haphazard pile of rock. It is a structure where every single measurement seems to whisper a number, a ratio, a cosmic truth. The perimeter of its base, for instance, relates to the Earth's circumference with an accuracy that defies simple chance, a scaled-down model of our planet carved in limestone and granite. Its height, when multiplied by a specific constant, yields a figure startlingly close to the average distance from the Earth to the Sun. These are not just random architectural choices. They feel like deliberate inclusions, a complex language written not in ink, but in geometry and alignment. Researchers like John Anthony West champion the idea that the pyramid is a stone Bible, a 3-dimensional repository of advanced knowledge about physics, mathematics, and astronomy, left for a future age to decode. This theory is amplified by a profound silence, the complete absence of hieroglyphs in the king's chamber and other central areas. The message was not meant to be written on the walls, it is the walls themselves. The entire structure is the text. Modern technology has only deepened this mystery, with advanced scanning techniques revealing tantalizing voids and potential hidden chambers deep within the masonry. What further chapters of this ancient book are we on the verge of discovering? The pyramid's near-perfect alignment to the four cardinal directions, with an error margin of just a fraction of a degree, demonstrates a level of geodetic and astronomical understanding that we are only now beginning to fully appreciate. It forces a fundamental shift in perspective. What if we stopped seeing these monuments as simple tombs or temples and started viewing them as the most durable communication devices ever created? This mathematical language of stone compels us to look at every ancient wonder with new eyes, searching for the code embedded within its form. Far from the geometric precision of the pyramids, another mystery stands on the most isolated inhabited island on Earth. Easter Island's massive Moai statues gaze inland with stoic silence, but they are not the only enigma left by the Rapa Nui people. Scattered among these stone giants were wooden tablets inscribed with a script unlike any other, known as Rongorongo. This was a written language that blossomed in complete isolation, a stunning intellectual achievement for a culture cut off from the entire world. The glyphs themselves are a complex tapestry of human forms, fantastical birds, and intricate geometric patterns, each line carved with painstaking care. They were arranged in a unique pattern called reverse Boustrophedon, where the text reads from left to right on one line, but you then flip the tablet upside down to read the next line in the opposite direction. It was a reading ritual as complex as the symbols themselves. Anthropologists like Dr. Stephen Fisher theorized these tablets were sacred repositories, potentially holding creation myths, detailed genealogies of chiefs, or vital astronomical calendars that governed planting and harvest. They were the civilization's beating heart recorded for eternity. Then came the collapse, following European contact in the 18th century. Slave raids and introduced diseases devastated the island's population. In a tragically short period, nearly everyone who could read the flowing script was gone. The knowledge so carefully carved became mute. The very isolation that allowed Rongorongo to develop uniquely is what now prevents us from understanding it. With no bilingual text like the Rosetta Stone to act as a key, and only a handful of authentic tablets surviving, modern decipherment efforts hit a wall of silence again and again. Each failed attempt echoes the same haunting question: what epic stories, what profound understanding of their world, vanished when the last reader drew their final breath? The existence of Rongorongo forces us to reconsider where writing can emerge, proving that the drive to record our existence is a universal human flame, one that can ignite even in the middle of a vast, empty ocean. This pattern of loss and hidden meaning is not confined to remote islands. It is a thread that leads us to the very heart of a European empire. High above the Peruvian desert, a spider the size of a city block stretches its legs across the arid plateau. This is not a creature of nightmare, but a creation of breathtaking artistry, one of the legendary Nazca lines. From the ground, these geoglyphs are little more than shallow scratches in the earth, but from the air, they reveal themselves as a sprawling gallery of colossal animals, intricate plants, and razor-sharp geometric shapes. For decades, their purpose has been one of archaeology's most tantalizing puzzles. Why would a people expend such monumental effort to create art they could never fully behold from their own vantage point? The answer may be written not on the earth but in the sky itself. German mathematician Maria Reich dedicated her entire life to protecting and studying these formations, becoming their most passionate guardian. She proposed that the lines were a massive astronomical calendar, their long straight pathways and complex figures aligning with the rising and setting sun during solstices and equinoxes, and perhaps even pointing toward key constellations. The precision required to create these designs is staggering. The builders carefully removed the dark, sun-baked stones from the desert surface to expose the lighter-colored soil underneath, creating stark, lasting contrast. They executed these massive figures with near-perfect symmetry and straight lines that run for miles without deviation, a feat that implies sophisticated knowledge of surveying and geometry, all achieved without the ability to view their work from above. This was not random art, it was a deliberate, calculated script written on the landscape. While the astronomical calendar theory is compelling, other interpretations suggest the lines served as sacred pathways for ritual processions, where walking the lines was a spiritual journey, or perhaps they were messages intended for deities who viewed the world from the heavens. The sheer scale of the endeavor, with some figures spanning over 200 meters, tells us that this was not a trivial pastime. It was central to the culture's understanding of its place in the cosmos. Even today, with the aid of drone technology, researchers are discovering new, previously unseen Nazca figures hidden in the vast terrain, a humbling reminder of how much we still have to learn. This earthly canvas, so intimately connected to celestial patterns, reflects a universal human theme we have seen before: the need to orient our greatest works with the heavens, to embed our understanding of the cosmos into the very ground we walk on. But what happens when the message is not a line on a map or a glyph on a wall, but a sound trapped in stone? Stonehenge stands frozen in a moment of celestial alignment, its great sarsen stones framing the rising sun on the longest day of the year. At that precise instant, a shaft of light cuts through the monument's heart, a phenomenon that has repeated for over 4,000 years. This was not a random arrangement of rock, but a sophisticated observatory built to track the complex dance of the sun and moon. The work of archaeoastronomer Gerald Hawkins revealed that the various alignments between the stones correspond to key solar and lunar events, from the solstices to the more subtle standstills of the moon. It functioned as a kind of Neolithic computer, its massive trilithons and arches forming a permanent, stone-calibrated machine for predicting the turning of the seasons and even the ominous specter of eclipses. The sheer effort invested speaks volumes about its importance. The smaller blue stones, for instance, were transported from the Preseli Hills in Wales, a journey of over 150 miles. Why go to such extraordinary lengths? This was clearly a place of profound power, both spiritual and intellectual. Recent archaeological surveys have uncovered that Stonehenge was not alone. It was the centerpiece of a vast ritual landscape, connected to a huge settlement at Durrington Walls by a processional avenue. This suggests a society whose entire cyclical life, from planting crops to honoring the dead, was synchronized with the celestial clockwork they so meticulously observed. With no written records left behind, the stones themselves are the only text we have. Their positions, their angles, their very relationships form a silent language of cosmic patterns. We are left to wonder what deeper layers of knowledge are still encrypted in the geometry of this circle. What if the specific placement of each stone holds a meaning we have not yet calculated, a message about time, harmony, and humanity's place in the universe that transcends any spoken word? A different kind of language is carved into the walls of Angkor, one that speaks not in numbers or alignments, but in epic tales. Thousands of square meters of sandstone are covered with intricate bas-reliefs, a sprawling visual library that has endured for centuries. These are not mere decorations, they are entire narratives frozen in stone, depicting everything from the grand Hindu myth of the churning of the ocean of milk to the vivid processions of a Khmer king's army. This Cambodian masterpiece represents one of the most ambitious projects of knowledge preservation ever conceived, using visual storytelling as its primary text. The carvings functioned as both religious instruction for the populace and an indelible historical record, ensuring that the empire's spiritual beliefs and its king's greatest achievements would never be forgotten. But the hidden code of Angkor Wat runs deeper than its breathtaking surface art. Researchers like Elena Manica have discovered that the entire temple complex is a scaled model of the Hindu cosmos. Its precise dimensions, the spacing of its towers, and even the lengths of its corridors correspond to astronomical time cycles, from the 4 ages of the world to the cycles of the moon. The temple's very structure is a mathematical equation representing celestial harmony. This symbolic intent is further emphasized by its unusual orientation to the west, a direction traditionally associated with death and the afterlife in Hindu thought. This was not a random architectural choice. It was a deliberate statement, likely linking the temple to the funerary cult of the king, turning the entire complex into a gateway between the earthly and the divine realms. How did the Khmer Empire coordinate such an immense undertaking? It required the synchronized labor of thousands, master architects who understood sacred geometry, astronomers who could translate the heavens into measurements, and armies of artisans who could give that cosmic vision a tangible, story-filled form. The result is a permanent library in stone, a civilization's entire world, captured in a single, monumental structure. This drive to embed a culture's deepest truths into its architecture reveals a pattern we have seen across the globe, a universal human need to build messages that can outlast empires and speak to futures the builders could only imagine. The Parthenon stands as a monument to an obsession with ideal form. Its marble columns, bathed in the brilliant Athenian light, appear as a vision of perfect straight lines and right angles. Yet this is one of its greatest deceptions, a secret code written in stone to correct the very flaws of human perception. There is not a single straight line in the entire structure. The stylobate, the platform on which it stands, curves upward slightly in the middle. The columns themselves bulge gently and lean inward, all calculated refinements designed to counter optical illusions that would make a perfectly straight building appear to sag. This was architecture that understood it was being seen by human eyes, and it was engineered to look perfect to them. The guiding principle behind this visual poetry was a mathematical relationship known as the golden ratio, a proportion revered by Greek philosophers as the key to cosmic harmony and aesthetic beauty. Scholars like Mark Wilson Jones have shown how this ratio, approximately 1.618 to 1, governs the relationship between the Parthenon's width and height and the spacing of its columns. This was not just decorative, it was a philosophical statement carved in marble, a belief that the same mathematical order that governed the movements of the stars should also be embodied in human creation. The building itself was a three-dimensional argument for a rational, beautiful universe. This mathematical perfection was married to a powerful visual narrative. The sculpted metopes depicted the triumph of civilization over chaos, while the majestic pediments showed the birth of Athena and her contest with Poseidon. Every sculpture, every proportional relationship, worked in concert to communicate Athenian identity, divine favor, and philosophical ideals. Even after centuries of transformation, from a temple to a church to a mosque and finally to a ruin, its core message of harmonious order remains undimmed. Its resilience is a testament to the power of an idea built to outlast empires. What profound truths are we missing in our own world, simply because we have stopped building with such intentional, encoded meaning? This universal language of number and proportion, so brilliantly articulated in Athens, finds a startling echo in the dense jungles of another continent. A single clap at the base of the main pyramid in Chichen Itza does something impossible. It echoes back not as a simple reverberation, but as the distinct, warbling chirp of the sacred Quetzal bird. This is not a trick of the jungle, it is the sound of ancient engineering. The Maya designed this structure with a mathematical precision so advanced that it manipulates sound itself. Each of the pyramid's steep staircases acts like a diffraction grating, a surface with a series of closely spaced steps. When a sharp sound like a handclap hits these steps, it breaks apart. The sound waves bounce off each step at a slightly different time, creating a rapid series of echoes that our ears perceive as a cascading chirp. Audio engineer David Lubman studied this phenomenon extensively, concluding that the specific timing of these echoes was meticulously calibrated to mimic the call of the Quetzal, a bird deeply associated with the serpent deity Kukulkan and the heavens themselves. This was symbolic communication built directly into the architecture, a way for the pyramid to literally speak with the voice of a celestial messenger during rituals. The acoustic marvels do not end there. In the city's immense Great Ball Court, a whisper uttered at one stone wall can travel with perfect clarity over 500 feet to the opposite end. In that vast, open space, such an effect would have transformed ceremonial games and performances, making the softest chant or the most secret instruction audible to all, as if the stones themselves were amplifying the words of the priests. This was no happy accident. The Maya possessed a sophisticated understanding of sound physics, of how sound waves reflect and interfere with each other. They engineered their buildings to be active participants in spiritual life, blurring the line between a static monument and a living, responsive presence. The structures were designed to sing, to whisper, to transform human action into divine dialogue. How many other ancient sites, now silent to our ears, were once vibrant with similar sonic landscapes, their acoustic codes simply waiting for the right sound to bring them back to life? This intersection of architecture and sound reveals an entire dimension of lost communication, where the very air between the stones was part of the message. But the silent gaze of the Moai is a profound deception. We have been looking at only half of the story. These giant heads are in fact complete bodies with torsos, arms, and hands, many buried deep in the earth. Recent excavations led by researchers like Joanne van Tilburg have painstakingly uncovered the truth, revealing that the statues stand on complex ceremonial platforms called ahu. These are not simple stone foundations, they are intricate structures incorporating burial chambers, carved petroglyphs, and evidence of sophisticated engineering that managed water and soil. The Moai were not just placed upon the land, they were integrated into a deeply sacred subterranean world. The most startling discovery is that the portions of the statues that remain hidden underground are often covered in intricate carvings. These are designs and symbols meant never to be seen by the living, inscriptions created solely for the earth itself or for the ancestral spirits they represented. This forces a complete re-evaluation of their purpose. The Moai were far more than passive sentinels. They were active connectors between the world of the living and the realm of the ancestors, with their buried bodies serving as a permanent, rooted conduit. The sheer effort to create this hidden language is staggering. How did a society, isolated on a tiny island with limited resources, transport these multi-ton statues for miles across rugged terrain and then erect them with such precision? The answer lies in a communal effort of unimaginable scale, a testament to a culture that prioritized the preservation of its identity and knowledge above all else. They invested everything in this stone library. This makes the silence that followed even more haunting. What complex genealogies, what creation myths, what essential instructions for survival are encoded in the full, buried bodies of these figures? We have only begun to read the first line of their story. while the most critical chapters remain locked in the ground, waiting for us to dig deeper and finally listen. This pattern of concealment, of messages hidden in the foundations, reveals a global architectural strategy for safeguarding truth. Long before the first stone was laid at Stonehenge, another sacred circle was already ancient. In southeastern Turkey, the massive T-shaped pillars of Göbekli Tepe rise from the earth, their surfaces a menagerie of carved foxes, scorpions, birds, and abstract symbols. This is the world's oldest known temple complex, a structure that fundamentally upends the story of human civilization. For decades, we were taught that agriculture came first, that farming allowed humans to settle down, and only then did they have the time and resources to build grand temples. Göbekli Tepe turns that idea on its head. Here, hunter-gatherers constructed this staggering site 6,000 years before Stonehenge. This suggests that the drive to come together for a shared spiritual purpose, to build a communal sacred space, may have been the very catalyst that led to settled society. It was not agriculture that created religion, but perhaps religion that demanded the organization and surplus of labor that would eventually lead to agriculture. The architecture itself is a profound mystery. The pillars, some weighing over 10 tons, were quarried, moved, and erected by a people we assumed were technologically simple. They are arranged in great stone circles, and the lead archaeologist, Klaus Schmidt, proposed they served a dual purpose as both temple and astronomical observatory. Specific alignments between the pillars appear to mark the rising of certain stars or seasonal solar events, embedding a celestial calendar directly into the ritual space. But the most compelling language of Göbekli Tepe is carved into the stone. These are not random decorations. The intricate animals form a symbolic system, a complex vocabulary whose grammar we have yet to learn. A fox might represent a specific clan or a spiritual concept. A vulture could symbolize death and the journey to the afterlife. This was a pre-literate society encoding its most vital knowledge directly into the architecture, creating a three-dimensional sacred text for future generations to read and understand. Then, around 8,000 years before the Common Era, the builders did something inexplicable. They deliberately and carefully buried their entire magnificent complex under tons of earth, preserving it perfectly but also hiding it from the world for millennia. Why would a culture go to such monumental effort only to intentionally seal it away? Was the knowledge it contained considered too powerful or too sacred to remain in the open? The sophistication of the carvings and the engineering skill required tell us that specialized knowledge was being passed down through generations without a single written word. This forces us to ask what cultural knowledge was so utterly essential, so foundational to their identity, that it demanded this incredible, back-breaking effort to preserve in stone. Göbekli Tepe stands as a silent witness to humanity's earliest and most determined attempts to encode our deepest meanings into a form meant to last forever. Buried deep beneath a Chinese hillside, an entire army stands frozen in time, waiting for a war that will never come. The Terracotta army of Emperor Qin Shi Huang is far more than a collection of statues. It is a meticulously crafted three-dimensional database of an entire military system. Each of the estimated 8,000 soldiers was sculpted with a unique face, a deliberate act of individuality that defies the very concept of mass production. You will find no two faces exactly alike among these ranks of clay. Some have high cheekbones and narrow eyes, others broad noses and determined frowns, each visage reflecting the diverse ethnic tapestry of the Qin dynasty's vast empire. Their hairstyles are tied in distinct regional fashions, and their armor, from the intricate plates of a general to the simple tunic of an infantryman, encodes their precise rank and battlefield role. This was not an artistic whim. It was a conscious decision to preserve the human reality of an imperial force in the most durable medium imaginable. The army's formation is a silent textbook on ancient military strategy. The vanguard consists of rows of archers and crossbowmen, poised to unleash a hail of projectiles. Behind them, the main force of infantry, chariots, and cavalry are arranged in precise tactical units, their positioning perfectly mirroring the battle doctrines described in surviving scrolls but never before seen in such complete physical form. This layout allows us to understand not just how the Qin army looked, but how it intended to fight and move as a single, devastating organism. The knowledge encoded here extends beyond the soldiers themselves. The bronze weapons they carried were still sharp, many coated with a chromium oxide that protected them from rust for over 2,000 years, revealing an advanced understanding of metallurgy and anti-corrosion techniques that was centuries ahead of its time. The chariots, with their precisely measured axles and spoked wheels, show a mastery of engineering for both speed and durability. Even the bureaucratic mind of the Qin state is present, with artifacts like standardized weights and measures, and administrative documents stamped with the seals of supervising officials, ensuring every aspect of this colossal project met the emperor's exacting standards. The sheer scale of this undertaking is almost beyond comprehension. Think of the coordinated labor, the armies of artisans and potters, the immense kilns required to fire each life-sized figure. This was not a mere burial accessory. It was the emperor's attempt to take the entire structure of his power, the very blueprint of his military might, with him into the afterlife. He was building a permanent, functional command in clay. So what can these silent soldiers tell us about the society that created them? They speak volumes about a culture obsessed with order, permanence, and the preservation of power. They reveal a sophisticated level of artistic, organizational, and technological achievement that written records alone could never fully convey. They are a permanent census of an army, a frozen moment in the life of an empire, proving that some of history's most complex messages are not written on parchment, but molded from the earth itself. The secrets of Petra are not carved in its facades, but flow through the veins of the city itself. This rose-red marvel is a masterpiece of hydraulic engineering, a hidden script written in channels, dams, and cisterns that whispers the ancient Nabataeans' most vital knowledge, the art of surviving the desert. In a landscape defined by scarcity, they created abundance. They did not just build temples and tombs, they tamed the violent flash floods that would periodically surge through the narrow canyon, known as the Sick, transforming a destructive force into a life-giving resource. Their system was an intricate network of diversion dams that captured the initial sediment-heavy surge, channeling the cleaner water into a complex web of underground conduits and ceramic pipes. These channels, carved directly into the canyon walls, directed water to massive, hidden cisterns that could hold millions of gallons, ensuring a steady supply for drinking, agriculture, and even lavish ritual baths throughout the year. Archaeologist Dr. Lee Ann Bedowell's work has revealed how this hydraulic network was the true foundation of Petra's prosperity, supporting not just its population but its famous gardens and public spaces, creating an oasis of stunning luxury in the heart of a barren wilderness. The design reflects a profound, almost intuitive understanding of the local geology and rainfall patterns. They knew exactly where to place their dams to maximize collection and how to angle their channels to minimize evaporation and siltation. This was sustainable resource management practiced on a grand scale over 2,000 years ago. This practical intelligence encoded in stone represents a different kind of script altogether. While other monuments spoke to gods and the cosmos, Petra's infrastructure speaks of human ingenuity and adaptation. Its message is one of pure, applied science, a testament to a civilization that prioritized the mastery of its environment as the highest form of knowledge. The sophistication of this system forces us to reconsider what we assume about technological capabilities in the ancient world. How many other seemingly mystical ruins hold similarly encoded practical wisdom in their very foundations, their secrets not in forgotten languages, but in the brilliant, functional design of their sewers, their aqueducts, and their reservoirs? Petra stands as a permanent lesson, reminding us that sometimes the most profound messages from the past are not about how to die well, but about how to live brilliantly against all odds. Machu Picchu clings to its mountain ridge not as a conqueror of the landscape, but as its natural extension. Here, the Incas performed a kind of architectural alchemy, where the line between human construction and the mountain itself dissolves entirely. They did not simply clear the land to build, they listened to it. The entire city is a conversation with the geology, a sacred dialogue written in stone. Natural rock outcrops were not obstacles to be demolished. They were incorporated as foundational altar stones in temples. They became spiritual backrests for thrones, their organic shapes guiding the very walls that grew around them. This was more than efficient building. It was a philosophical statement that the mountain was alive, intelligent, and its forms were to be honored and integrated. Researcher Johann Reinhard mapped how this reverence extended to the heavens, identifying precise astronomical alignments where carefully positioned windows frame the rising sun on the winter solstice, and specific sightlines between carved stones mark the Southern Cross constellation. The city itself was a colossal calendar and observatory, its layout dictated by the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. This celestial choreography is matched by an equally brilliant understanding of the earth below. The Incas were master geologists and hydrologists. They read the mountain's water flow with astonishing precision, constructing a network of fountains and channels that still function perfectly today, bringing fresh spring water to the entire complex. They carved over 700 terraces into the precipitous slopes, but these were not just flat spaces for crops. Each terrace was a complex, layered structure with deep gravel bases for drainage, specific soils selected for fertility, and stone retaining walls that prevented erosion during heavy rains. This was a self-sustaining system engineered to last for millennia, and it has. The knowledge encoded here is holistic, blending the profoundly practical with the deeply spiritual. A ceremonial temple aligns with a sacred peak on the horizon, while just below it, a drainage channel ensures the foundation remains dry. This creates a powerful question for our modern world. What can we learn from a civilization that read the natural world as carefully as we read written texts? Machu Picchu stands as a permanent testament to that wisdom, a city that does not shout its presence but whispers its secrets in the language of wind, water, and stone. The roar of 80,000 voices was not a chaotic noise but a carefully orchestrated sound, each person seated according to a strict social score. The Roman Colosseum was far more than an arena for spectacle. It was a gigantic, three-dimensional model of the entire Roman social order. Your seat was a public declaration of your place in the world. The best views on the cushioned marble benches of the lowest tier were reserved for senators, priests, and the imperial family. Directly above them sat the equestrian class, the wealthy businessmen and knights. Higher still were the plebeians, the common citizens of Rome, and at the very top, in the cramped, hot wooden bleachers, were the poorest men, freed slaves, and sometimes, in segregated sections, women. This was not a casual arrangement, it was a law of stone and space, a constant, visible reminder of the hierarchy that held the empire together. The architecture ensured these groups never had to mingle. The famous vomitoria, the vast network of arched passageways and staircases, were engineering marvels that could empty the entire structure in minutes. But their true genius was in their design, which funneled each social class through separate entrances and exits, maintaining a rigid physical separation from the moment a spectator arrived until the moment they departed. The crowd moved like water through predetermined channels, never overflowing its social banks. Beneath this carefully managed surface world lay another, the hypogeum. This subterranean labyrinth of tunnels, chambers, and elevators was a hidden engine of controlled chaos. Here, slaves, convicts, and trained animals waited in the dark, while complex pulley systems prepared elaborate sets and surprises to erupt through trapdoors in the arena floor. The hypogeum represented everything the polished marble seating above sought to conceal: the brutal machinery of power, the human and animal cost of the spectacle, all operating just out of sight to preserve the illusion of seamless imperial grandeur. Even the practical comforts were statements of control. The immense velarium, a canvas awning stretched by a special detachment of sailors, shielded the privileged spectators from the sun. Elaborate fountains sprayed perfumed water to cool the air. These were not just amenities, they were demonstrations of an empire so advanced it could command the very climate for its citizens' comfort, all while reinforcing who truly benefited from that power. Every element, from the segregated seating to the hidden machinery, worked in concert to broadcast a single, unwavering message. Roman society was a pyramid of precise order, and this building was its ultimate blueprint. It makes you wonder, in our own modern stadiums and public spaces, what invisible hierarchies are being quietly reinforced by the very benches we sit on and the doors we walk through. The white marble of the Taj Mahal holds a silence that speaks in perfect geometry. Every arch, every minaret, every pathway of its gardens is a deliberate note in a visual poem dedicated to divine harmony and eternal love. This is not merely a beautiful building, it is a complex philosophical argument written in stone and water. The entire complex is laid out with an almost supernatural symmetry along a central axis, a reflection of the Islamic concept of balance and the perfection of the divine realm. When you see its flawless image mirrored in the long water channels, you are witnessing a representation of paradise itself, the Quranic promise of gardens beneath which rivers flow made physically real on earth. This symmetry is so absolute that it even extends to a duplicate mosque built purely for visual balance on the western side, ensuring that the aesthetic and spiritual equilibrium remains unbroken from every angle. This mathematical perfection is deeply symbolic. Art historian Ebba Cox's detailed studies reveal how the proportions of the main dome, the height of the minarets, and the dimensions of the central chamber all relate to specific numbers and ratios revered in Islamic mysticism. The layout of the Charbagh, the four-part paradise garden, is a cosmological map. Its waterways represent the four rivers of paradise, and its carefully arranged flora symbolize both earthly abundance and spiritual virtues. The building itself becomes a bridge between worlds, its white marble and intricate inlay work echoing Persian traditions, while its massive arched entrance, the pishtak, and the use of domes show a masterful synthesis with earlier Hindu architectural principles. This was a deliberate act of cultural fusion, a message of unity carved into the very heart of the empire. Even the passage of time is part of the design. The Taj Mahal was built to be in constant, beautiful flux. Its marble surface is not a static white, but a living canvas that interacts with the sky. At dawn, it captures a soft, pinkish glow, as if blushing with life. Under the midday sun, it becomes a brilliant, almost blinding white, a symbol of purity and divine presence. And when bathed in moonlight, it transforms into a soft, luminous gold, suggesting a spiritual essence shining from within. This daily metamorphosis was an intentional lesson, a commentary on the impermanence of our world set against the perceived permanence of the soul and of love. The changing light reminds us that beauty and life are transient, while what they represent can be eternal. The written word is seamlessly woven into this architectural symphony. The magnificent calligraphy that frames the great arches are verses from the Quran, but they are far more than decoration. The size of the script subtly increases as it climbs higher, a visual correction that makes the letters appear perfectly uniform from the ground below. This exquisite detail shows how every element, even the sacred text, was subservient to the overall harmonic vision. The words become part of the building's structure, their spiritual message physically supporting the gateway to the tomb. So what is the ultimate message encrypted in this marble masterpiece? It speaks of a love that sought permanence in perfection, a belief that mathematical harmony could echo the voice of the divine, and a profound understanding that the most powerful human emotions can be translated into a form that transcends time itself. It asks us if our own creations, our own expressions of love and belief, could ever aspire to such a perfect, silent, and enduring language. The silence at Teotihuacan is not an emptiness but a language. Walking the Avenue of the Dead, you are traversing a colossal sentence written in stone, its grammar the precise angles of pyramids, and its vocabulary the measured spaces between temples. This entire metropolis was a conscious act of cosmic mirroring, a sprawling urban grid designed to reflect the order of the heavens onto the earth below. The city's founders did not simply choose a location, they oriented it with breathtaking intention. The main axis of the city is skewed precisely 15.5 degrees east of north, an alignment that corresponds with the setting point of the Pleiades star cluster, a celestial event of profound significance in Mesoamerican cosmology. This was not a solitary alignment. The massive pyramid of the sun itself was positioned to frame the sun's passage on key dates, its overwhelming presence a permanent anchor between the terrestrial and the celestial realms. The entire urban plan functions as a kind of clock and calendar, where the movement of shadows across plazas and the alignment of structures with solar and stellar events would have dictated the rhythm of ritual and agriculture. Every citizen, simply by living within this designed landscape, was immersed in a daily, physical conversation with the cosmos. The consistency of this vision across centuries is what makes it so compelling. Archaeologist Saburo Sugiyama's work reveals that through multiple phases of construction and expansion, the fundamental orientation and proportional relationships were meticulously maintained. This was not a fleeting idea, but a core piece of knowledge, a sacred blueprint passed down through generations of architects and rulers without the need for a deciphered written script. The knowledge was too important to be entrusted to parchment alone. It was baked into the very foundations of the city. This encoding extended from the monumental to the mundane. The standardized apartment compounds that housed the city's vast population were not haphazard dwellings. They followed a repeated template, organized around central courtyards and built with consistent proportions, demonstrating that the principles of order and planning permeated every level of society. This was a holistic vision, a society that understood its stability and its spiritual purpose as being one and the same, both expressed through the silent, powerful language of urban design. What does it mean to live inside a text? For the people of Teotihuacan, their entire world was a readable, sacred geometry. Their city was a permanent assertion that human civilization could, and should, be a perfect echo of the universe's hidden mathematical order. Its vast dome appears to hover, weightless, on a golden ring of light. This was the miracle of the Hagia Sophia, an architectural feat designed not just to inspire awe, but to physically manifest a core Byzantine theological idea: the dome was heaven come to earth. The architects achieved this impossible lightness through a brilliant innovation: 40 arched windows puncturing the base of the dome, creating that luminous band that visually severed the massive structure from the supporting masonry below. This was not mere decoration, it was a deliberate disorientation of the senses, making the divine feel tangibly present within the space. The entire structure operates on this principle of sacred geometry, a physical translation of complex Christian Neoplatonist thought. Scholars like Robert Ousterhout detail how the building's core design, a massive square base supporting a monumental circular dome, was a direct symbolic statement. In this theological language, the square represented the solid, four-cornered earth, while the perfect circle embodied the eternal, unified heaven. The Hagia Sophia was the architectural mediator, the point where the earthly and the heavenly realms met and became one. This divine conversation was not silent. The unique curvature of the dome and the vast, reverberant interior created a powerful acoustic environment. A single chant from a priest would not just be heard, it would be transformed, its notes swelling and lingering in the air as if amplified by the heavens themselves. The sound became a tangible presence, wrapping the congregation in a blanket of sacred resonance that made the liturgy a full-body, immersive experience. This sensory immersion was dynamic, changing with the time of day and the turning of the year. The strategic placement of windows allowed shafts of light to travel like celestial spotlights across the interior, illuminating different mosaics and altars at specific hours. A beam of light might fall upon a depiction of Christ Pantocrator at the very moment a key prayer was recited, creating a synchronized spectacle of light, sound, and belief that felt divinely orchestrated. This was spatial theology in its most active form, the building itself participating in the worship. Even its later life as a mosque continued this tradition of encoded communication. The addition of minarets framed the heavenly dome within an Islamic context, pointing the faithful toward prayer, while enormous medallions of Arabic calligraphy now hung where Christian mosaics once shone. These were not contradictions, but new verses added to an enduring architectural text, each layer affirming the same core idea, that this was a place where humanity could touch the divine. How does a building make you feel the presence of something greater? The Hagia Sophia answers not with words, but with space, light, and sound, proving that the most profound doctrines can be written in stone and air. A single path of white marble runs like a spine through the heart of the Forbidden City, an unwavering line of imperial authority stretching from south to north. This was not merely a convenient layout, it was the physical embodiment of a core belief that the Emperor, the Son of Heaven, was the central axis around which the entire human world revolved. Every hall, every gate, every courtyard in this vast complex was meticulously positioned along this cosmic line to mirror the perfect, harmonious order of the heavens. To walk from the Meridian Gate at the southern entrance toward the Hall of Supreme Harmony was to undertake a ritual journey of increasing sacredness, each successive gate and courtyard filtering out lower levels of society and reinforcing a rigid Confucian hierarchy. The outermost courtyards were accessible to officials, while the innermost sanctums were reserved solely for the imperial family, creating a physical map of social strata where your permitted distance from the center was a direct measure of your status and power. Architectural historian Zhu Jianfei explains how this spatial organization was a deliberate tool for governance, a way to make abstract philosophical concepts about heavenly mandate and social order tangibly, unavoidably real for every person who entered. The entire city functioned as a three-dimensional diagram of the Chinese cosmos, with the emperor's throne as its literal and symbolic pivot point. This encoded message of power extended to the most minute details. The ubiquitous yellow glazed tiles roofing the major halls were not an arbitrary aesthetic choice. Yellow was the color symbolizing the center of the universe and was exclusively reserved for the emperor. The walls were painted a deep, vibrant red, a color associated with good fortune and joy, but also with fire, the element of the south from which the emperor derived his divine power. Even the number of doornails followed a strict code. The most important gates featured arrays of 9 by 9 nails because the number 9, the largest single digit, was considered the ultimate masculine number and was inextricably linked to imperial supremacy. This numerical symbolism is a language we have seen before, from the pyramids to the Parthenon, a recurring human instinct to embed sacred mathematics into our most important structures. The names of the buildings themselves were proclamations. You did not simply enter a hall, you passed through the gate of supreme harmony or stood before the hall of preserving harmony. These were not descriptive titles, they were constant, verbal reinforcements of the ideological message the architecture was built to convey, a world in perfect, harmonious balance under a celestial mandate. This profound integration of philosophy, politics, and design required the preservation and transmission of incredibly specific technical knowledge across generations. Master craftsmen and builders operating within rigid traditions passed down precise formulas for joinery, for foundation laying, and for the creation of the brilliant pigments that have withstood centuries of sun and rain. The Forbidden City is therefore a library of multiple disciplines, its very mortar holding the secrets of cosmology, social engineering, and material science. It makes you wonder, in our modern cities of glass and steel, what invisible hierarchies and unspoken beliefs are we building into our own landscapes, and what would a future civilization deduce about our values from the silent, structured spaces we leave behind? The walls of the Alhambra do not simply surround space, they articulate a universe of infinite complexity. Every surface, from the stucco panels to the wooden ceilings, is a visual sermon on the nature of divine unity. This is not mere decoration for beauty's sake, it is a sophisticated philosophical language rendered in plaster and tile. The intricate geometric patterns are built on principles of perfect symmetry and tessellation, where a single, repeating shape interlocks to cover an entire plane without gap or overlap. These designs are more than just visually stunning, they are mathematical expressions of the infinite. A star pattern does not end at the edge of a wall. Your mind understands it could continue forever, a finite glimpse into an endless, perfect order. This reflects a core Islamic concept that the divine is a singular, unified reality whose perfection can be hinted at through the limitless repetition of mathematical forms. Researchers like Braug Essam have shown that the artisans here employed advanced knowledge of what we now call quasi-crystalline geometry, a complex arrangement that would not be formally defined in the West for another 500 years. Their understanding of these patterns was not just artistic intuition, it was a form of crystallized mathematical intelligence. This visual language is seamlessly integrated with the written word. Flowing Arabic calligraphy carved directly into the stone and stucco weaves poetry throughout the halls. These are not random verses, they are specific poems praising the beauty of the palace, the wisdom of its ruler, and the generosity of God. The architecture itself becomes a literal text to be read, where sacred geometry and sacred writing merge into a single, unified message. The experience is further deepened by the masterful use of natural elements. Light is not merely allowed in, it is carefully channeled. lattices of carved wood known as mashrabiyah filter the harsh sun into soft, dappled patterns that dance across the geometric walls, making the static designs appear to shift and breathe with the passing day. The gentle, constant sound of water flowing through channels and fountains provides an auditory counterpoint to the visual silence of the patterns, a sensory reminder of life and purity within this mathematical paradise. How can abstract concepts become a visual language? The Alhambra answers by turning its very walls into a meditation on order and transcendence. It demonstrates that the most profound philosophical content can be encoded not in grand statements, but in the silent, endless repetition of a single, perfect shape. For 17 minutes a year, the tomb breathes light, deep within the chamber of Newgrange on the mornings surrounding the winter solstice. A slender blade of sunlight pierces the absolute darkness, reaching across the stone floor to illuminate the ancient resting place. This is not a random event, it is a feat of engineering 5,000 years old. A specially constructed opening, a roof box precisely positioned above the entrance, acts as a celestial gun sight, capturing the low-rising sun on the shortest days of the year. The beam travels down a 60-foot passageway, a narrow corridor built with an exact orientation, to flood the central chamber in a golden glow. This was the work of astronomer priests, individuals who possessed a sophisticated understanding of the solar cycle and the skill to translate that knowledge into immovable stone. The man who led the modern reconstruction, Michael J. O'Kelly, witnessed this phenomenon himself, documenting how the sunbeam illuminates the chamber with an accuracy that defies its Neolithic age. The alignment is so precise that it only functions for a few days on either side of the solstice, a fleeting moment of cosmic connection that required generations of observation to perfect and then to build. Why would a farming society invest such immense effort in a solar clock made of earth and rock? The answer is written in the very stones that frame the entrance. Elaborate spiral carvings and concentric circles cover the great curbstones. Their swirling patterns are permanent, if enigmatic, text. Some researchers suggest these are maps of the cosmos, representations of the sun's journey, or perhaps even portals to other realms. Their true meaning is a debate that continues, but their presence at the threshold of the solar alignment is undeniable. They are the preface to the light show within, a visual warning that you are crossing from the ordinary world into a space where the heavens themselves are given a voice. The technical mastery extends far beyond the roof box. The entire mound is a marvel of Neolithic engineering, its complex corbelled roof remaining completely waterproof to this day, a testament to building techniques that were clearly passed down through generations of skilled artisans. The sheer scale of the project, requiring the movement of 280,000 tons of stone and earth, points to a unified community, a society bound by a shared cosmological belief so powerful it justified this decades-long labor. The tomb was not just a place for the dead, it was a machine for capturing a moment of celestial time, a permanent reassurance that after the longest night, the sun would always return. What profound understanding of death and rebirth, of the cycles of nature and the human soul, motivated this incredible architectural prayer. Newgrange stands as one of the world's oldest known observatories, a structure where the boundary between a tomb and a temple dissolves into a single, powerful statement that our deepest knowledge about life and the cosmos can be written into the very land we walk upon. The serene gaze of the Leshan giant Buddha looks out upon a conquered chaos, where three violent rivers once converged in a treacherous maelstrom. This 71-meter-tall colossus carved from a cliff face now imposes a profound calm. Its creation was an act of spiritual devotion fused with brilliant environmental engineering. In the 8th century, a monk named Hai Tong initiated this staggering project, driven by a dual purpose. He sought to harness the power of the Buddha to pacify the deadly waters that routinely capsized boats and claimed lives, while also creating an eternal object of veneration. The method of its construction was the key to its function. For 90 years, workers systematically quarried the stone directly from the cliff, and the immense volume of rock excavated from the statue's body was deliberately deposited into the raging confluence below. This was not mere waste disposal, it was a calculated intervention. The accumulated stone at the riverbed altered the hydrology of the area, taming the whirlpools and smoothing the currents enough to make navigation fundamentally safer. This statue was not just watching over the river, it was actively engineered to change it, its very form a permanent part of the river's new, safer landscape. The spiritual message of compassion and peace was physically enacted through this monumental feat of civil engineering. How does a statue survive for over 12 centuries exposed to wind and rain? The answer is woven into the sculpture's own anatomy. A hidden network of drainage channels was ingeniously carved behind the Buddha's stone hair curls, within his ears, and along the folds of his robes. This unseen system prevents water from pooling and freezing, channeling rainfall away from the core structure and mitigating the erosive forces that would have crumbled a lesser work long ago. This hidden practicality ensured the longevity of both the spiritual symbol and the environmental solution it represented. The project demanded a generational covenant, a transmission of technical knowledge and unwavering purpose from master to apprentice for nearly a century. The Buddha's serene expression facing the river is therefore a multi-layered statement. It communicates spiritual peace to the observer, while the statue's entire physical presence whispers an ancient, practical wisdom about living in harmony with and even reshaping the natural world. This colossal figure challenges our modern separation of the sacred from the practical, asking us what profound environmental knowledge might be encrypted in the silent, enduring art of the past. Your own footsteps become part of the ritual on the stone pathways of Borobudur. This is not a temple you simply enter, it is a spiritual ascent you physically enact, a journey where every step upward represents a stage of enlightenment. The massive structure is a perfect mandala in stone, its design a profound architectural metaphor. You begin your climb on the square, heavily decorated base level, a realm symbolizing the world of desires where our feet are still firmly planted in earthly concerns. The walls here are covered in vivid relief panels depicting the law of karma and the consequences of worldly actions, a visual primer on moral cause and effect. As you ascend, the terraces remain square, but the narrative shifts, the carved stories moving from simple moral lessons to the life of the Buddha and the deeds of other enlightened beings. The sheer volume of this stone scripture is staggering, with over 2,672 individual carved panels forming a continuous, unfolding narrative. According to the work of scholars like Dr. Hudaya Kandajaya, these sequences are not random. They are a direct, stone-carved translation of specific Buddhist sutras, a permanent library open to any pilgrim who knew how to read its walls. The journey is both external and internal, the physical act of climbing mirroring the spiritual effort of letting go. Then, a profound transition occurs. The square terraces suddenly give way to 3 circular platforms. This is the shift from the defined, structured world of form to the formless, limitless realm of the spirit. Here, the carved narratives cease entirely. Instead of story panels, you are surrounded by latticed stupas, each one housing a serene Buddha statue, 504 in total. The air feels different, the space more open, the focus turning inward. The final goal is the central, largest stupa at the very peak, an empty, sealed dome. This is the ultimate architectural statement, representing nirvana itself, a state beyond all form and description, an emptiness that is perfect fulfillment. The entire structure is a masterclass in sacred geometry, its proportions calculated with mathematical precision to induce a specific state of mind in the pilgrim. This immense stone book was so effectively encrypted that it was lost to the world, buried and preserved under layers of volcanic ash for centuries, its teachings waiting silently for a future age to rediscover its path. It forces a powerful question about our own learning. How much deeper might our understanding be if our most important lessons were not just read, but walked, felt, and ascended toward step by deliberate step? The Great Sphinx of Giza is a geological manuscript written in wind and water. Its body is not a seamless creation, but a layered text of erosion patterns that tell conflicting stories. Geologist Robert Schoch observed deep, vertical weathering channels on the Sphinx and its enclosure walls, patterns typically caused by prolonged, heavy rainfall. This presents a profound riddle because the climate of Egypt has been predominantly arid for the last 5,000 years. To account for such significant water erosion, Schoch proposed the Sphinx could be thousands of years older than its traditional attribution to Pharaoh Khafre around 2500 BCE, potentially dating back to a time when the Sahara was a verdant landscape. This single observation challenges the entire chronological narrative of early civilization. In contrast, traditional Egyptology anchors the Sphinx to Khafre through archaeology, noting the statue's proximity to his pyramid complex and the stylistic resemblance of the head to his known statues. They argue the weathering could be the result of wind, sand, or even the effects of rising groundwater. This is not merely an academic debate, it is a fundamental disagreement over how to read the most basic language of all, the marks left by nature on a work of man. The monument's form itself is a powerful symbolic statement. The fusion of a human head with a lion's body was no arbitrary choice. It likely represented the pharaoh's dual nature, combining human intelligence with the leonine strength of a ruler, a permanent assertion of royal power intertwined with the cosmic order. This celestial connection deepens the mystery. Some researchers propose the Sphinx was astronomically aligned to face the constellation Leo directly during the spring equinox around 10,500 BCE, a date that would support a far more ancient origin. While this theory is highly contested, it illustrates how the Sphinx is read not just as a statue, but as a fixed point in a conversation with the stars. Modern technology is now probing the secrets the surface cannot reveal. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have indicated the potential for hidden chambers and tunnels deep beneath the Sphinx's pores and alongside its body. These anomalies are not yet confirmed rooms or passages, but they are tantalizing clues, suggesting that the most important chapters of this story might be buried and waiting. The statue's own damaged face adds another layer to its complex history. The missing nose and ceremonial beard are not just results of random decay, but likely deliberate acts of iconoclasm across the centuries, each alteration a new sentence written over the old. What final truth does this weathered guardian protect? The Sphinx stands as an ultimate palimpsest, a single monument onto which vastly different histories have been inscribed, each theory trying to decipher the true message hidden within its stone. High on a sun-baked cliff face, an entire city seems to grow directly from the stone. The cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde are not structures imposed upon the landscape, but ones woven into its very fabric. This was architecture as a dialogue with the earth, a brilliant response to the demands of a high desert environment where survival was anything but guaranteed. The ancestral Puebloans did not just build houses, They engineered a complete, sustainable existence by reading the land's subtle language and building their reply in sandstone blocks and clay mortar. Their most profound insight is written in the orientation of their homes. They positioned entire villages within deep, south-facing alcoves. This was a masterstroke of passive solar design, a way to harness the sun's energy centuries before the term was invented. During the low, weak sun of winter, these overhangs allowed precious light and warmth to penetrate deep into the dwellings, heating the stone walls that would radiate heat throughout the cold nights. Conversely, when the summer sun rode high and fierce, the massive rock ledge of the alcove roof cast a permanent, cooling shade, creating a natural refuge from the desert heat. This was not a lucky accident. It was a precise understanding of solar patterns encoded directly into their city planning. The very materials they used tell a story of profound adaptation. They quarried the local sandstone, shaping it into blocks that fit perfectly together without any need for external mortar in some constructions. They understood the geology of their home, building with the rock that was already there, ensuring their structures were not just durable, but a literal extension of the cliff itself. This intimate knowledge created buildings that have endured for over 7 centuries, outlasting countless modern structures. Archaeologists like Dr. Donna Glowacki have traced how these communities were not static. Their settlement patterns shifted over generations in a clear, deliberate response to changing environmental conditions, particularly prolonged drought. They moved from scattered homes on the mesa tops to these highly concentrated, defensible, and environmentally efficient cliff dwellings. This was a society that learned to flex and adapt, its architectural choices representing a deep, collective intelligence passed down through generations. At the heart of these communities were the kivas, circular, partially subterranean chambers that served as the spiritual and social centers of Puebloan life. Their design was itself a coded message. The entrance was through a roof accessed by a ladder, symbolizing the people's own emergence from the underworld into this world. A small hole in the floor, the sipapu, represented the portal through which their ancestors first entered the realm of existence. The very architecture of the kiva reinforced their cosmology, grounding their daily community functions in a sacred understanding of their place in the universe. Practical survival was engineered with equal genius. In an arid landscape, every drop of water was precious. They constructed intricate systems of small dams and reservoirs to capture runoff from the mesa tops, channeling it to where it was needed. They identified and managed natural seep springs within the alcoves, ensuring a reliable water source even in dry periods. Every element, from the grand orientation of a village to the smallest water channel, was part of an integrated system for living sustainably in a challenging world. Then, around 1300 CE, the people made the difficult decision to leave their magnificent cliffside cities behind. This was likely not a single event, but a gradual departure driven by a complex web of factors, including a severe, multi-generational drought that would have strained even their brilliant adaptations, combined with broader social shifts and resource pressures. They did not vanish, they migrated, carrying their essential knowledge with them to new lands. Their legacy is a haunting question for our own time. What lessons in sustainable living, in building with the environment rather than against it, are written into these silent stone walls? Mesa Verde stands as a permanent library of environmental intelligence, a testament to a civilization that understood its survival depended on listening to the earth and encoding that wisdom into every stone they laid. The stone walls of Great Zimbabwe rise without a single drop of mortar binding them. This was a city built on the eloquent language of dry stone construction, where the very technique of stacking granite slabs communicated an empire's stability and ingenuity. For centuries, these massive, curving walls have endured, their precision a silent testament to the sophisticated engineering knowledge perfected and transmitted across generations. The most awe-inspiring example is the Great Enclosure, with its towering outer wall and iconic conical tower. The builders selected and shaped each stone to interlock perfectly with its neighbors, creating structures so stable they have withstood earthquakes and the relentless passage of time. This was not crude piling, it was a mastercraft, a form of nonverbal knowledge that spoke volumes about the society's technical prowess. The city's layout itself was a clear spatial text of social organization. The hill complex served as a royal citadel and spiritual center, its elevated position naturally separating the ruling class. Below, the sprawling valley ruins housed the citizens, the artisans, and the traders, while the magnificent Great Enclosure likely functioned as a royal residence. This deliberate separation in stone mirrored a complex and hierarchical social structure, a physical map of political power for all to see, as archaeologist Dr. Shadrach Kairakure has documented. This architectural grandeur was deeply connected to the city's role as a hub in vast regional trade networks. Gold, ivory, and goods flowed through its gates, and the imposing stone walls were not just for defense. They were a bold statement of wealth and authority, a permanent advertisement to trading partners near and far of the kingdom's stability and riches. This message of power was further refined by the famous soapstone bird sculptures discovered atop monoliths throughout the ruins. These birds, with their distinctive human-like features, are believed to have symbolized the connection between the royal lineage and the spirit world, perhaps representing ancestral guardians or the authority of the king. They were emblems of a unified spiritual and political identity, carved from the very earth the kingdom controlled. With no deciphered written records, these stones and sculptures are the only primary text we have from this great civilization. The site's own name confirms this, Zimbabwe, meaning House of Stone in the Shona language. Their cultural identity was so intertwined with this architectural achievement that they named their very civilization after it. So what specific political and technical knowledge is encrypted in these silent, mortarless walls? They tell a story of a society that mastered its environment, organized itself with clear intention, and communicated its power not with words, but through the enduring, perfect fit of one stone upon another. A turtle shell cracks with a sound like fate itself. In the heat of a ceremonial fire, this fracture was not a flaw but a sentence, a direct message from the ancestors to the Shang dynasty kings. This was the birth of Chinese writing, not in a scholar's study, but in the smoke and urgency of divine consultation. The questions they asked were matters of life and death. Will the harvest be abundant? Should the king go to war? Is the coming sickness an omen? A scribe would then meticulously carve the question directly into the bone or shell, often alongside the prophecy interpreted from the crack's path, and sometimes even the eventual outcome. These oracle bones became the empire's most sacred logbooks, blending spiritual inquiry with the practical needs of statecraft. The work of scholars like David Keithley reveals how these inscriptions expose the entire skeleton of early Chinese civilization. We see a sophisticated bureaucracy at work, with scribes recording celestial events, administering rituals, and tracking tributes. The very complexity of the characters shows a language rapidly evolving from simple pictographs into a sophisticated symbolic system, driven by the necessity to record increasingly detailed prophecies and their results. It was a communication technology forged in the fires of both faith and administration. The survival of this archive is a historical miracle. These bones were not meant to be permanent. After their use, most were discarded into refuse pits, buried and forgotten for over 3,000 years. It was this very act of throwing them away that preserved them, protecting the fragile bones from the elements and creating an accidental time capsule of unparalleled importance. This dual identity is what makes them so compelling. They are ritual objects, tools for speaking to the gods, and simultaneously, they are the most direct historical documents we possess from that distant age. They capture a moment of profound transformation, where abstract cracks in a bone were slowly being translated into the concrete, enduring lines of written characters. So what is the ultimate message encrypted in these scorched shells? They tell us that writing itself may have begun as a conversation with the unknown. The deepest human needs to predict the future and to speak with the divine may have provided the very impulse to record, to formalize, and to create a system of marks that could outlast a single human voice. It forces us to reconsider every ancient script. How many other writing systems began not as mundane accounting, but as a desperate, beautiful attempt to read the will of the universe itself? A laser beam sweeps silently across the weathered face of an Egyptian obelisk, capturing every crack and groove with a precision measured in millimeters. This is not science fiction, it is the new frontier of archaeology, a race against time to digitally preserve the world's monumental messages before they are lost forever. Teams are now using laser scanning and photogrammetry to create perfect three-dimensional models of ancient structures, digital twins that can be studied, measured, and explored long after the originals have succumbed to erosion, pollution, or human conflict. These virtual copies are more than just backups, they are powerful new lenses through which to read the ancient world. The Scan Pyramid's mission, for instance, uses muon tomography, a technique that relies on cosmic rays to see through hundreds of feet of solid stone, revealing hidden voids and internal structures that have baffled explorers for centuries. This is like developing X-ray vision for archaeology, allowing us to read the hidden chapters of a monument's construction without ever touching a single stone. At the same time, projects like the Digital Hammurabi Initiative are employing advanced imaging to resurrect texts once thought lost. They use multispectral imaging, which captures light beyond the visible spectrum, to illuminate faded ink and reveal cuneiform writing on crumbling clay tablets that appear utterly blank to the naked eye. It is a technological resurrection, bringing voices silenced for millennia back from the brink of oblivion. From the ground, the patterns are invisible, but from orbit, a different story emerges. Pioneers like digital archaeologist Dr. Sarah Parkak analyze satellite imagery to detect subtle changes in vegetation and soil, unveiling the ghostly outlines of ancient roads, settlements, and entire cities buried just beneath the surface. This bird's eye view is rewriting maps of the ancient world, showing us that the landscape itself was a text, and we are only now learning how to read its largest paragraphs. These digital archives do more than protect against sudden destruction. They combat the slow, insidious damage of millions of tourist footsteps, the creeping threat of climate change, and the gradual decay that even stone cannot withstand. They ensure that the knowledge encoded in these structures, from the precise angles of a pyramid to the faintest scratch of a forgotten alphabet, is not a temporary artifact but a permanent inheritance. This raises a profound question for our own era. If we are now using the most advanced tools of our time to save the messages of the past, what monumental truths are we, in turn, encoding for the future, and will our own methods of preservation be legible 1,000 years from now? From the cracked oracle bones of ancient China to the laser scanners mapping the pyramids, our journey reveals a single, stunning truth. These monuments were never just stone and mortar. They are humanity's most ambitious libraries, built to withstand the collapse of empires and the silence of millennia. Their shelves are not made of wood, but of proportion and alignment. Their pages are carved from bedrock, and their language is written in the precise angle of a solstice sunrise, the hidden drainage channel within a giant Buddha, and the acoustic chirp echoing from a Mayan pyramid. Each culture developed its own dialect in this universal language of permanence, encoding the knowledge they cherished most, whether it was a king's military might frozen in terracotta, a city's survival ensured by hidden water channels, or a civilization's entire cosmology mapped across a temple's walls. This diversity of methods, from the celestial mathematics of the Parthenon to the sustainable genius of Mesa Verde, points to a shared human impulse. We are driven to build messages that can carry our deepest understanding of the world, our gods, and ourselves across the abyss of time. The very stones become a complex communication system, speaking through material, form, and the empty space they shape. Today, our tools are different, but the conversation continues. Advanced scanning and satellite imagery are the new Rosetta Stones, allowing us to read these ancient texts with a clarity our ancestors could never have imagined. We are learning to listen to the whispers trapped in the geometry of a circle or the erosion patterns on a sphinx. This ongoing dialogue between past and present reminds us that the most profound truths often bypass written words entirely, speaking directly to us through the experience of space and the genius of material. Perhaps the ultimate lesson encrypted in these silent sentinels is about our own place in this continuous story. They stand as permanent testimony to the human need to create meaning that outlasts our individual lives, to send a message into a future we will never see. Every society leaves its mark, adding a new chapter to this grand, unfolding narrative written in the landscape. The journey into lost communication is far from over. It continues with every new scan that reveals a hidden chamber, with every fresh interpretation of a forgotten symbol, inviting us to look more deeply at the world we have built and to consider what our own stones will one day say.